Brett, before we jump into our picks, we got to talk about the NFL draft, specifically some winners and losers. And not only did you go 1-2 with your picks, but you got a good win with your Christian Watson under. But you have to be really happy with how the Jets did.
Yeah, I think the Jets, obviously one of the feel-good stories of the draft. I think Baltimore did pretty well, Higgins.
I'd say the Lions, too.
Yeah, okay, Lions. Some people saying the Colts did really well as well, even without that day one pick, or the first-round pick. So there were definitely some winners. And then, there were some head-scratchers for sure. New England. Left a few people scratching their head, trading up for the Thornton out of Baylor in day 2. They also
not
drafted
just that, but Cole Strong.
Yeah, exactly. Strange. Come on now.
Strange.
Higgins.
Sorry, Strange. They drafted a different guy named Strong.
Okay, fair enough. So, I think, some winners, some losers, but truthfully, you won't have any idea until about 3 or 4 years into this thing, right?
Absolutely. The only thing that in terms of betting value that you can take from this is if you were really happy with how one of these teams' drafts went, maybe you think it sways them on a win total and you end up taking them on an over win total compared to before the draft. But I don't know. It's still too far away from me. I liked the Giants draft. Day 1 kind of carries their draft card, though, as you go further down. I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson, a wide receiver they picked on day 2. Good pick. Some people are saying they may have reached for him a little bit, but Brett, you and I have said in years past, if that's your guy and you don't know if you're going to get to him in round 3 or with your next pick, it's not insane to necessarily go for that stretch, especially with the Giants who traded back twice to begin round 2 and then just sat there finally and made their pick.
Yeah, I think a big thing that's missed, in the draft process, right? As we sit here for months and months reading so-and-so's mock draft and so-and-so's top rankings. Well, unfortunately for so-and-so or fortunately for so-and-so, they don't work for the Ravens and the Colts and the Jaguars. So all these teams are going to have different rankings, Higgins, of these players and what they believe. So, yeah, it makes sense that a lot of these mocks are incorrect because they're getting information from agents, maybe trying to boost their player stock. Maybe they're getting a smokescreen from a team. I think it's definitely real that, the mock drafts and whatever, the insiders' mocks don't always match up with the real thing.
And the biggest drops or surprises I think that we saw, this wasn't supposed to be a quarterback draft or a really strong one, but to only have one quarterback go in the first round, that it doesn't happen very often in the NFL. And for it to be Kenny Pickett falling all the way to the Steelers in the 20s, you and I last episode, we were talking about the Carolina Panthers, maybe the New Orleans Saints picking him. We didn't think he was going to fall maybe past 13 with the Saints. He falls into the 20s and is the only quarterback in the first round to a lot of people's surprise.
Yeah, I think, the biggest surprise was Malik Willis. Ends up being the third quarterback taken, and he has to wait till the third round.
I told you I was high on Ritter.
Yeah, you were high on Ritter. So, I mean, look, I think for Willis, he's in a good situation in the sense that he's not expected to start day 1. And I hope he can develop into the franchise quarterback, that teams thought he could potentially be, or that at least fans thought he could potentially be coming into the draft. So, look, I'm rooting for him. His draft day story, is kind of a tough one. I'm sure it wasn't the weekend he envisioned, but he has every opportunity now in front of him to make the most of it. And look, some other quarterbacks went to some interesting situations. People were pretty high on the Western Kentucky kid, Zappy. So he ends up going and getting drafted by the Patriots. He'll now be most likely a career backup, right, to behind Mac Jones, the first-round pick a year ago. So we'll see what happens here, Higgins, but definitely a lot of interesting stories from the quarterback position. Sam Howell goes in the 5th round, Higgins. but pairs up with a wide receiver he threw 20 touchdowns to in college. So lots of fun storylines.
And Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, the quarterback out of Iowa State. So who knows? Maybe he doesn't become so irrelevant. Maybe he works his way onto a roster and finds his way onto the field. But I think, yes, it was surprising to see these quarterbacks fall the way they did. But I think it could be beneficial for a lot of these guys. I mean, you look at Desmond Ridder, who's going to Atlanta. He's not going to have the pressure to probably start day one with Marcus Mariota there. Ridder will be able to acclimate himself to the system and be able to get in when he's ready. Malik Willis in Tennessee, he doesn't really have much pressure to take that role from Ryan Tannehill right out the gate. In fact, Tannehill is expected to make so much more money next year. This might be one of those contract moves that they're hoping Malik can sit for a year, and then instead of having to pay Ryan Tannehill all that money next year, they can just move on to Malik Willis.
Yeah, we will see. We will see what happens there, but let's get into some bets against